Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this Thursday's edition of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting, the July episode. Ooh, robust, expressive, powerful red is in front of us. Those of us that are playing along, who's with us? Let me know if you're there, and I look forward to tasting this wine with you this week. This week that brings record heat and incredible mercury soaring temperatures. We've got 100 degrees in the forecast, and so I don't know exactly the profile of this wine yet, but just from the appearance, and we know from doing this many months now, almost years now, that just even the appearance alone you can learn a lot about a wine, and this is probably not your patio sipper for this weekend. I think this is going to be a richer, more robust red based on color, but we'll find out as we go through and taste this together, evaluate this together. But just on the visual, I don't think this is going to be the patio sipper that we're all going to want. Maybe it's just more crisp, refreshing, ice cold beer, iced tea, something of that sort this weekend with the heats that we're expecting. We are supposed to have our sidewalk poured this week too out front as they're chugging along with the Main Street renovation here in Marshall, and all of the concrete companies that they source concrete from have shut down for the week because it's too hot. The concrete will set before it gets to its destination. So that gives you an indication of what we're looking at in terms of summertime heat. But the best part about Virginia is you wait a little bit and it will change. So it'll likely be chilly the next week. Regardless, it's probably a little bit warm down in Florida too, and that's where Todd's joining us from. So Todd, hello. Great to have you with us, sir. See what you think of this little wine. Not as hot in Florida, which, you know, like I said, every once in a while, Virginia bounces to the extremes. So we'll deal with it from here. Glad you're in Florida enjoying yourself, and happy that you were with us this evening. Hi, Erica. Oh, I'm so excited to have you with us this evening, too. Great to see you the other night. I don't know whether that was 2 nights ago or 2 weeks ago or more. They all blend together for me, but it was wonderful to have you in for dinner. So glad to see you joining us this evening and with the wine tonight. I know Trish, Andy, and Kathy are not going to be with us. I think they're away for the week, and they're venturing on to camp or something. That's a concert tonight. That's what it was. And so hello to all of you, Trish, Andy, and Kathy. If you are going to watch this later and do this on your own at some point, greetings. Enjoy yourself then. For those of you who are also watching but haven't chimed in yet, please do so. We'll get underway with this particular wine. So big, bold red is what it appears, right? Just right off the bat. Erica and Todd and whoever else is with us, chime in. What do you think? What do you see as you're looking at this particular wine? Even before we get to aroma. It's looking at it over a white background with a decent amount of light, and one of the things you're looking for when you're looking at the color of a wine, right, is to see what its intensity is. And is it something that's light, i.e. you can see through it, you could read a paper through it? Is it sort of moderately so, you can kind of make out maybe a shape through it, but it's not something that you can see clearly through? Or is it pretty opaque and you just don't see, it's clouded, it's either cloudy or it's just so deep and rich and dark that you can't see anything through it? Rob and Kathy, good evening to you. Hello. And Erica, I think your description of the deep and rich and dark, inky, is a great one. So ink you couldn't see through, and that's certainly the case here. Peggy and Chris, Donna and Mel, welcome. We're delighted you're with us this evening too. We're looking at the color of this wine as we get started. And I had mentioned right off the bat that it looked pretty dark. Erica's comment of it being inky is totally appropriate. What that tells you right off the bat is that you're looking at something that has potentially a thicker skin, that has had more extraction happen, that is something from a warmer climate, something that is a bigger, bolder varietal. So if we looked at this and said it's inky, it's dark, you can't see through it, I think this is Beaujolais Nouveau. It is, light, bright, vibrant, white red wine. Not so much. So you already know something about this wine just by looking at it that way in the color and from how it presents in terms of the depth and intensity of the wine. As you swirl it, what kind of elements are you picking up here? Are you getting the formation of tears and legs? So the tears run down and then they form and stay in to delineated, identifiable, and steadfast legs, that'll give you an indication too of some ripeness potentially, some potentially higher alcohol, which would come from a warmer climate potentially, and a thicker, richer grape varietal. As you tilt that glass, are you seeing any color variation? What colors are you picking up? Erica's noting a little bit of orange hue at the edge. Do you see a color variation? I'm tilting the glass like this and looking up over it so that I can get a view of kind of a wider spectrum of the wine. And in the center core, so the center of this wine right here, as it travels to the rim, is there variation in color? And that's what Erica was noting. She's saying that there's a color variation, an orangish quality to the rim. Barely there. I'm getting a little reddish color there, a tiny bit. Mostly it's pure in color. What you see when something's sort of pure running all the way to, instead of having kind of striations of color as you get to the rim, is that this is probably more youthful. So as a wine, a red wine in particular, ages and loses some of its color, it falls out in the form of sediment. That color came from the tannins, from the overall perspective of kind of extraction of that tannin aging in wood, and that falls out in the form of sediment. And so as it falls out, it loses color. And so as you get changing color from the rim to the center, maybe even continual change of color, maybe it turns really brown. You have a wine that's very aged. That would be an indication of age. So I think there might be a little hint of that. What's more pronounced and more of note here is that there's a watery rim. Watery as meniscus, as it's called. There's a little rim around the outside of the glass that has a little water quality to it. So Todd, you're pointing out right that we have no browning really with a youthful profile. There's some tears there, thank you Erica, that indicate some slight staining, so real pigment extraction. Robert, yeah, the legs look syrupy. That syrupy part, the large tears, the substantial legs, we're looking at something robust and potentially from a warm climate. And then that watery meniscus kind of adds to our thoughts about this, noting that it probably has a little bit of a higher alcohol. And so that's all things you pick up right off the bat from this wine. So that helps, I think, in some ways less driving you toward a specific varietal and much more toward the ability to weed out other varietals. So this puts some varietals in the camp and takes others probably largely out. Gamay I just mentioned from Beaujolais. Pinot Noir probably is not this particular production, right? But Tannat, Mourvèdre, Syrah Grenache maybe, Cabernet perhaps, right? Some Zinfandel perhaps, although we've tasted some recently that too also give you kind of that reddish hue more than the purplish cast. But a bigger, bolder, more robust red, and the varietals that would come with those. All right, so what do you smell? Remember, we're looking for a few things: fruit, earth, and wood. On the fruit side of things, what do you smell? Do you smell a bunch of fruit? And if you do, what kind of fruit is it? Is it black fruit? Is it red fruit? Is it tree fruit, like apples? Is it stone fruit, like peaches or nectarines? Is it berries? Do you have citrus in there? Do you have some tropical fruit by the way of citrus? Is it pineapple? Is it coconut? Is it papaya? Something of that sort. Oftentimes not, usually, with respect to a red wine, right? But what quality, then, of the fruit is it, too? So let's say you smell black fruit. Is the black fruit fresh? Is it picked right off the vine or off the bush? Is it something that has a tartness to it? Is it something that is, on the other end of the spectrum, dried raisiny? Is it stewed? Where does this fruit fall in the way of the quality of the fruit? There's anybody else picking up on kind of it's a boozy fruit. It's sort of an alcohol preserved fruit. It's a kirsch, kind of a creme de mûre. There's a blackberry kind of element to it. There's a touch of a medicinal quality to that fruit too, in the way that you're picking it up. It's a fresh fruit profile, not so much stewed, but it has like this preservative element. There's an alcoholic component here that you're getting on the nose. Dried blackberry, so you're getting a little bit of raisinated quality or dried quality. Yep, Pecky, that's great. I'm sorry, black cherries, not blackberries. I think that's fair too. I mean, blackberry is is present, but it's more about that deep kind of rich flavor that you get from a cherry as opposed to the blackberry. There's mostly that, right? It's mostly kind of that blackberry element. There's a bit of that. Yeah, it's not quite stewed. I agree with you, Erica. So it's not quite to the stewed part. It's not like a compote um, or a cobbler. It is, or a cherry pie filling, for example. It's not like confectionery sugar sweet on the nose. It has ripeness to it, but it's not additionally amended or altered in that way. And from that fruit, are you picking up anything earthen? So few, F-E-W, fruit, earth, wood. On the earthen side of things, I'm not seeing a whole bunch on the earthen elements, but I am picking up some woody notes. And by wood, really we're talking about largely some things that would be spice or herb. Sometimes you also pick up kind of a little bit of a cedar quality on wine, but you get vanillin elements, you get that cedar cigar box element, you get lots of baking spices, you get sometimes dill by way of an herbaceousness. So do you pick up any of those notes? I am. I'm getting kind of a vanillin note. So there's a little bit of an oak quality here that I think this wine has seen some. I don't know whether this wine has seen like a whole bunch of new oak. Maybe there's a touch of new oak. There's some element of sort of that baking spice too coming through. Yeah, great, Chris, Peggy, and everyone. You're picking up on the baking spices. Good. So there's a signature here of at least some profile of oak. It's not so much so that it's like overwhelming, and then I think this wine is being dominated by oak. But there's a presence of oak, which fits with the idea of something that has a bold, rich character. It oftentimes is matched, supported, accentuated by oak treatment and oak usage. And so that's probably for what we're finding here. And we're picking that up on the nose. That can be reflected too. I didn't note that you can get a nuttiness, which is what Erica is noting. Nuttiness is also, I think, an indication sometimes of the barrel toast on a barrel and how that translates through and comes out in a particular wine. Cool. All right, let's try the wine and see if it matches up to our kind of descriptors so far from the visual and from the nasal examination. So we've got deep, rich, black cherryish, blackberry quality of fruit that's more kind of not stewed per se, but it's very ripe and it's preserved. It's kind of almost the essence of that flavor is captured in something alcoholic, like a Kirschwasser or like a creme de mure or something like that. A spirit note of vie that has that real pure kind of fruit profile. It has perhaps a kind of a medium plus bodied weight that we're expecting, maybe more. It had real tear formation, leg formation. So let's find out. Definitely some of that cherry, like black cherry, which are really pretty good right now. Got my hands on a couple of good bags of cherries recently, and there's some just starting to see some. Saw some last week at the Green Barns Farmers Market in the Plains on Sunday. So, but there are darker cherries in this wine. There's that black cherry that Peggy noted earlier. So, black cherries there. Let's talk before we get into the aromas and the flavors. What's this wine like texturally? Is it sort of medium bodied, robust bodied? We kind of decided it probably wouldn't be light bodied based on its color and the depth of that color. And with that body, where does it stand with respect to tannins and acidity? Is it dry? Eric is picking up on some tannins. Chris, Shirley. Yeah, no worries, man. We can certainly chime in as we get to the descriptors here if you have some input. Love to have your feedback, of course. Thank you for wishing me well. I've been thinking about you guys, too. We popped open a little Leelanau Peninsula Riesling Star and I did the other night on our night off. And thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you for that. And we're talking about you guys and wondering if you were in Michigan again or somewhere else. But hope you're having a great time wherever you are, and look forward to seeing you soon. It is kind of chewy. I like that description with respect to the tannins. Tannins can be powdery fine, like think of baby powder and how it would coat a tabletop if you were to sprinkle it, right? It just kind of, it lays, it covers, but it's not weighty in any way. It's not putting an imprint on anything. It just sort of brushes away, but it's there, powdery. It can be kind of sinewy, where it's just everywhere in the mouth, and kind of it has strings and lines of it that just crisscross across the palate. It can be silky and elegant and kind of like it drapes on the palate. Tannins can then also be chunky, chewy, really something that you have to kind of cut through almost to work through. But this wine certainly has some of that. Medium plus body, medium body, yes. I think my first taste, it was more surprising to me that it was more medium bodied than medium plus or higher, so let's try it again, or I'll try it again. This is where we've had this discussion a little bit before about acidity, body weight, and tannin, and how these three can play together to create wonderful harmony. At other points, they can be discordant and can kind of trick the taster into thinking that one is more outsized than the other. So the tannin profile on this is bigger, and the footprint, I would say, is larger than the overall body weight of the wine. So it reads as a more robust wine than I think it actually is, but the youthful tannin is expressing in a way that makes you think it's a bit bigger. The acidity is present there, but it's not crazy, but it is sort of prolonged because that tannin experience in the mouth lingers post the taste. So I would say it's got a medium finish, but it's almost a lengthy finish by way of the expression of the tannin, which does seem to linger more than it sits on the front of the palate. Erica likes that interplay, which is cool. That's great. Not very alcoholic, not as alcoholic on the palate for Chris and maybe Peggy and team that are with them as on the nose. Look for a little bit of sort of, you have a sip of it, what comes up. Like, is there a little bit of a burn in the back of your throat? Do you feel kind of a retronasal heat that comes by way? That was another indication, or a place you can kind of look for overall alcohol tells. But what we're finding here is a real strong presence of tannin, and with that tannin, an otherwise pretty well interesting balanced wine, which is very cool. So we're looking at purplish to kind of lightish red, or sort of a brickish red kind of outside color, pretty young, cherry notes. What grapes should we be considering at this point? Syrah was thrown out there. I think that was from Todd, right? Or was that from Chris? I apologize. I missed that earlier. Smells like Syrah. Let me think. I'm going to search back here for a second. Chris, you were saying Syrah, question mark? Syrah, I think, was something we can consider. Probably... there's that character of fruit that's pretty ripe. Should we look at something with tannin like this? Where do you pick up tannin like this? Sometimes you get that in Tannat, which we've tried before. Sometimes you get that in something like Petit Verdot. A blend with sometimes perhaps Malbec, and sort of we've tasted some Malbecs with a real powerful tannin from Sécor in France. I'm thinking also typically from a tannin perspective only, Nebbiolo or maybe Dolcetto would give you some of this tannic expression. But the fruit, the cherry element would match Nebbiolo, but the body weight seems a bit rounder and richer than maybe Nebbiolo would be. But maybe it's Nebbiolo from a different place than, say, the Piedmont, because the color's pretty dark and expressive, and I would expect it to be a tiny bit lighter. Maybe Dolcetto, though. Dolcetto could be an option here. Syrah. Eric, if you've been thinking about Nebbiolo, what are you thinking here? Do you find that this would be like Nebbiolo from the Piedmont, from the northwestern part of Italy? Or would you be placing this somewhere else that, I don't know, you've got Virginia Nebbiolo, of course, you've got California Nebbiolo, you've got Nebbiolo produced in Australia, kind of one of those grapes that if you can get it to ripen and grow, winemakers that are interested in quality and production always would love to have Nebbiolo because it's pretty expressive and interesting. Its signature of showcasing place is well respected that way. But you get rose quality usually from Nebbiolo, you get cherry quality, you get this definite tannin expression. I don't think this would be. I mean, maybe there's a riper vintage Langhe Nebbiolo that this could be, but it would just be hard pressed. I would be hard pressed to believe that this color would come from that. Happy to learn, but Dolcetto I think would be an example that you could get some dark color and some of that tannin expression. Now, to pause on kind of the varietal discussion, do we think this is Old World or New World, and why? And that is one way to think about this that would then help you cut out parts of the puzzle in order to focus more specifically on one particular region or regions, and then work your way into varietals from there too. Sometimes you think about varietals and then think about where they go, and then other times you can think about places or regions in the world and then think about that. Todd's throwing out Sangiovese, so potential Sangiovese. Again, I don't know that we'd get this color. I mean, we could get this color maybe from something like Brunello, for example, and that structure and that power. But I don't think unless Julie found it in a remarkable Brunello, I don't think we'd be pouring Brunello at $30. If she did that, I want to know more about it. We have poured Brunello in the past. We got a tremendous deal, but we poured it like $50, I think. And Robert, I think that your point is one that's well taken. That as climate change impacts growing regions and we have warmer vintages, it's going to be very difficult to tell a style from one place to another. I had the really great fortune, and next year we'll have the fortune of sharing some of what I got a chance to do today with all of you by way of a wine dinner. I got a chance to taste with a master sommelier from Australia, and he's bringing wines into the United States. And I'm a big fan of Australian wines, as we've talked about some in the past on this chat, but otherwise certainly here with guests in the restaurant. And we just don't see the bulk and the breadth of wines that are produced in Australia. But what's unique about that is that it's New World as we define it, but it has the oldest vines of anywhere in the world that are continuously producing, and so they haven't had phylloxera, so they haven't had to rip out. So in the weirdest way, it is the oldest producing place in the world presently, and so thus should be qualified as an old world production, but it's the New World in idea, partly because it has just more of an abundance of sunshine. It has cool climate elements that are cooler than the old world counterparts. The older world counterparts now are warmer than some spots in Australia, but it gets ripeness by way of the phenolic ripeness it can achieve because of the sunshine. So to your point, Robert, I just rambled, but it's going to be more and more difficult to just identify old world, new world. I would say that after all that, though, I would think this would be more New World in orientation. We've got that ripe fruit, that higher alcohol, that viscosity. We have acidity, but it's not a super tart acidity. And then it presents, I think, in a way that has a more New World signature in terms of giving you just a textural quality as opposed to a layered element of that acidity and texture. And so, however, you can find examples in Italy, in Spain, per Todd's note right now, that would give you warmth in a New World kind of context with a wine like this. So maybe, for example, we get to the south of France and we're drinking Aglianico, or south of Italy, we're drinking Aglianico with tannin and expression there. That'd be pretty neat. So could be Spain too, and Tempranillo base, or could be Portugal and drinking a Portuguese wine that has some structure to it. Todd, they're not. I don't know about Henley yet. Or do you mean Hendry? I know Hendry is another producer down there. Henley, I did not see in the tasting today. Chris, to your question about this being a blend, could this be a blend? Always worthy of asking that question. And what do you do to determine that? Are you getting discordant notes? And I don't mean like in a disjointed fashion, but are you getting things that are hard to pin on one varietal? So I get real ripeness, and then I get sour fruit. I get tons of acidity and almost a residual sugar. I get punches of tannin and then a little nuance and softness. I get real bold flavors, but it's light in body. And so all of those things, if you get those kind of dualities or pluralities in a wine, you might oftentimes consider it being a blend, because each grape varietal then would be contributing something different to create that kind of range of experience within the one glass. These are not necessarily all single varietal. They can be a blend. Typically they're trying to be wines, I think, that Julie's picking that are single varietal, so that we have that to work with. But there are very worthy regions we would omit, just because then we're looking for single varietals, the Rhone being a great example of that, where we're not going to not put a Rhone wine in here just because it's a blend. Blends are harder to identify, but we might not nail the blend, but we could also come to the realization that this is a blend, and so this could have some blended wine in it too. Although I'm picking up much more of a purity kind of expression, and so I think it might be a single varietal. It hasn't changed that much. Normally, 27 minutes in, usually like we found at 21, 22 minutes, the wine changes. This has stayed pretty consistent. If anything, the tannins have bloomed a touch more for me. But it hasn't changed a whole bunch. And I opened it right before we went live. And so this isn't expressing itself in a new or different or more dimensional way to kind of reveal more. It just sort of gave everything it did right off the bat. So Erica, I think we should definitely consider Malbec. I think we should consider Syrah. I want to keep maybe Dolcetto in there. Aglianico. Barbaresco, Todd, I think we would be presented with a little lighter color, but I could be wrong. Like we said, riper vintage. Nebbiolo, perhaps from a New World site, would be an option. There's all that ripe red cherry, black cherry element. So let's talk about Syrah. It was the first grape thrown out there. Where would this come from if it was Syrah? We've got France. We've got Syrah plantings in Spain, yes. We've got Shiraz planted in Australia. We have Syrah planted in South Africa. We have it, of course, in the United States. We have it in Chile and down that way. So we have it in Washington State. We have it in California. We have it in principally Washington State and California. By way of blind tasting, that's where you'd focus. I mean, yes, there are examples of it made here in Virginia, other spots, but I think what you're focused on in terms of Syrah would be those places. If we had determined this was Syrah, which of those places would this wine be? It's okay, Erica, with respect to being terrible at regions. So if we identify that this is Syrah, and I'm not sure it is, but just as an exercise, as a way to think about regions, which Washington, California, Chile, France, South Africa, and Australia, we have 6 options there for Syrah or Shiraz. Where would we put our pin in the map? And this reminds Chris of California Syrah. So it has that ripeness. I think that's fair. Chile sort of seems to have a little bit more herbaceousness. I think you get a little bit more smokiness and meatiness. Generally maybe a little bit lighter color and a little less kind of chewy tannin quality coming from Syrah in, say, France. And so for me, I would take out Chile and France. I'd be looking toward the warmer area. So it would be sort of Australia, South Africa. If it was coastal South Africa, I don't think this would be it, but I could be wrong. I'm not picking up any kind of eucalyptus-y, minty elements that you might get from Australian Shiraz. That would be a tell. Doesn't mean it's not from Australia, but if you got one of those for me, it just sort of is a sort of indication like, gosh, we got to think about Australia pretty strongly. I'm also not getting kind of that black pepper element or any real meatiness from this. So for me, I would probably walk away from Syrah. But when you're thinking about that varietal, you can use a varietal to help you think about place too and say, all right, well, this is, if that's that varietal, how's it expressing itself? And can I weed out some of the places that it comes from? And that might help you get to a closer place. So I think this could be Australia, could be South Africa, it could be California, could be Washington. Maybe we should add other places as we talk about other varietals. But so if it's not Syrah, could it be a GSM blend? That would be interesting to me from Australia. I don't think this is a Syrah. I can't rule this out 100% from Syrah from South Africa. Maybe, but more inland, not coastal. California is an option. Washington State could be an option too. It's got some power, but gosh, yeah, maybe it is. I'm definitely at a loss on this one in terms of knowing specifically where it is. On the California front, do we like sort of a petite Syrah kind of idea? There's a ripeness to this. I think that sometimes goes into the blue fruit kind of element. I'm not picking up a whole bunch of Grenache notes. That would be some on the blue side of things too. So a wine that gives us real ripeness, tannin, some bold tannin. So reconciling for this point, thick-skinned grape varietal that has tannin that was extracted in the production of this, a little bit of an oak aging, or at least an oak touch, but not so much so that it really mutes the fruit in any way. This is meant to be enjoyed now. I'm really all over the map trying to fit that. I could make a case for Petite Syrah. I could make a case for Syrah from California. I could make a case for Syrah, ripe Syrah. I could make a case maybe for, I think less and less a case for Dolcetto. I don't think this is a Bordeaux varietal, for example. I'm not picking up elements that is really indicative of, say, that pyrazine note or any bell pepper note, any kind of that currant note. So this is just ripe, kind of ripe red to black. Chris Shirley's drinking a Syrah Petite Syrah blend from California right now, and we might be drinking one with him. I mean, that's kind of where I'm headed. A very interesting sort of ripe California blend of Syrah, Petite Syrah, which could equally be the case for something from, say, South Africa. So, New World, ripe. I have the sensation right now that it's like right in front of my face, but I can't see it. What are your final kind of guesstimations at this point, guys? Where you want to plant a flag? We kind of worked our way away from the old world, so it puts us in the new world by way of our logic and our deductive process. And so in the new world, what variety? Todd, you like Nebbiolo, so New World Nebbiolo. All right, I like that too. If I was more comfortable with the idea of where I could place Dolcetto, I might throw Dolcetto in the New World, but I can't tell you where I would get that. So if I had said California Dolcetto, I don't think that's a real viable option because I can't think of anybody who would be doing that, and that would be a wildly interesting blind tasting from Julie, but it has that tannin expression. I could make a case if we went Old World like something in a very ripe southern kind of orientation. Chris, you're saying Syrah, California, 2018 or 19, great. So a youthful Syrah from California. I think that's where I'm going to stay too. I think I'm going to be in California, more Central Coast, Central Valley, something with maybe Petite Syrah blended into it. It's more about the fruit. It's less about that kind of earthen expression that you would get in the old world. So I think that's where, yeah, and it's youthful. So 2019 would be available, would be fine. 2020 maybe even, but 2019, 2020, 2019. So 2 to 3 year old, youthful, 2 40 year old, youthful, California Syrah Petite Syrah kind of blend. I will go there too. Ready? Let's see. Holy cow! Failed that miserably. Oh, miserable. Oh, that's pretty dang cool that we failed so bad. Wow. 2019, guys. Yes, but this is Chinon. This is 100% Cabernet Franc. Wow. Talk about the discussion of New World, Old World, and how it's going to be difficult. I didn't get any green element on this. Yeah. Wow. This one beat us. This one just totally beat us. But there's no indication of that kind of bell pepper, pyrazine element, an herbaceous kind of quality that sometimes come through, like rosemary quality. This is a wine that has texture and power. What is the alcohol in this? 14% alcohol, so normally like in that 13 range. This is just ripe. This is just very ripe from 2019. And it's not like this came from Touraine, right? Just where this was just a big wine that came from a big year. This is Appellation Chinon, so vastly different than expectation. No pepper. Yeah, this is fascinating. Yeah, nice job, Julie. You got us big time on this. I don't know. This is one of those wines that, does it change your perspective on Chinon? Does it indicate climate change more than that? Do we have to reformulate the reference points with respect to what we're drinking? This was nowhere on my radar. I was trying to consider Bordeaux, just to go through the spots. Not a once was Loire Valley and Chinon in particular on my radar in this. So fantastic. I love it when I get beat up like this from a wine. It is delicious. It's really well matched. Chris, that's okay. She can mess with us. That's fair. But she's got to put a good wine in front of us when she does, and she did. So very cool. Well, thank you everybody for helping me not get this, but at least for playing along. This is one I'm going to ponder for a minute. Yeah. Our Chinon, it says in the back label, with intense purple color, complex and mineral aromas, black currant and blueberry. Didn't get as much of the black currant or blueberry, much more about that kind of black cherry for us. But yeah, this is a big baby from Chinon context particularly. So, well, that's great. This is tremendous to get to do this again, of course, with you. I look forward to it every month, and I will see you back here in August for the next iteration of the Mystery Wine Blind Tasting. Until then, I hope to see you, some of you, in here at the restaurant. Otherwise, I hope you stay cool, and we'll taste again together in a month. Cheers, everybody. Be well until then.